Bayern Munich then will take on Manchester City in the next round as they advance 3-2 on aggregate against Arsenal. You all right?
Sorry?
You okay?
Yeah.
Why did you point a face?
Did you say Bayern Munich take on Man City?
Yes.
When?
That'll be the next round.
No, Man City are out.
Oh, God, yeah, sorry, Real Madrid.
Oh,
that's all right.
I'm sorry.
Cut that out. Cut that out in the edit. It's fine. We're live.
By the way, he said, yeah, Man City. What?
I told you.
That's all right. We only talked about it for half an hour, that's all.
Here we go. Well, I wasn't listening. Robson
said... Shut up. Burley, will you put me off? Shut up.
Right, here we go.
Oh, my
Jurgen, Bluminette, Bayern, eh?
Yeah, a bit similar to what we just talked about with Real Madrid. When you face Bayern Munich, you're not facing the team that just lost the Bundesliga title to Bayer Leverkusen, that lost in the German Cup against a third division team. You play Bayern Munich in the quarterfinals of the Champions League is a completely different story. You play a club that always believes that they can win the Champions League no matter what. No matter what the Bundesliga season brings you or the German Cup brings you. And this is huge, and this is how that game evolved. Arsenal, which is certainly a fantastic team and plays a fantastic season and has so much talent and has so much to give. The first half, they were, I thought, okay, they're waiting. Maybe we have to go into extra time in this game. So they were very shy, both teams actually. And then it's probably at halftime, Thomas Tuchel told the team, listen, go out there now and get this win. So we go into the semi-final. And that's typical Bayern Munich. So they came out of halftime, out of the break, and they rose a little bit the tempo of the game. And there was the double chance with Goretzka and Guerrero. And then it was sooner or later was clear they're going to score a goal. And I'm personally very, very thrilled for Joshua Kimmich that he scored that goal, that decisive goal, taking them into the semifinals, because he had a tough year behind him in the final 8, final 4. It's a different team. It's because it's a different club, and they have that confidence. They know how to do it, no matter what happened last week, maybe in the Bundesliga.
It's silly. In some sense, that criticism came indirectly from his manager, didn't it? By his terminology.
Yes.
As Jurgen said, the number 6, possession and chase. Paulinho, both Kimmich and Goretzka, I think, have been out of favour. Certainly Goretzka out of form for big chunks of the season. But right back is his natural position. A bit like Philip Lahm back in the day, guys that can just pretty much play wherever you put them. That's how talented these guys are. But he has been having a bad time in terms of, his manager making it clear he doesn't fancy him in the middle of the park. Can I give you some sort of sentimental take on the Bayern side of it? I think a lot of people have been trying to rubbish Harry Kane's move to the Bundesliga and say, well, Harry Kane's at Tottenham, he wins sod all, he goes to Bayern, they win everything, they're going to win nothing. He's a quality striker. And we know Bayern have been a really good side, they're having the struggles this year, but here Harry Kane is. Obviously Leverkusen have done it by some margin in the Bundesliga. But here he is, I think, validating his move to a club of this size, who are always fighting on these fronts, and they've had a bad one domestically. But now, who's to argue, looking at Man City being knocked out and Arsenal are knocked out by Bayern, that it's pretty much up in the air. So I think, for the likes of Harry Kane, particularly to these sort of online trolls, he could stick 2 fingers up at them and say, you know what, don't be too quick about talking about me winning nothing. So I think for him, that's a big result as well. I mean, just for one player, but for the club it's huge. But I think for Harry Kane, validating his move there in the semi-final of the Champions League.
That was Craig Burley's sentimental corner, ladies and gentlemen.
It was kind of sentimental, and then he drifted.
The only thing is, I really don't see how anybody's going to beat Man City.
Well, I know. They go free where they lose. That was the 2 best performances we've seen from Bayern Munich this season, wasn't it? Home and away against Arsenal?
I think so. And the difference with Bayern Munich in these 2 performances, as compared to what we have seen most of the season in Bundesliga, and this is simple. I don't want to overanalyze this. Heart,
right?
Fight,
they cared.
Energy, intensity, running, challenging the ball, winning duels, winning second balls. a little bit of organization defensively, and just overall a certain attitude about the team that isn't always there and hasn't always been there in Bundesliga play. Certainly wasn't in the Pokal, but you see it, and that's when if you're a Bayern Munich fan, you have to get frustrated. You're happy that you go through, but you also have to be frustrated. Like, also you have it in you. You have this sort of performance in you. You have this sort of attitude. You have this sort of personality and this sort of talent. You just choose to display it every so often, not all the time. That's difficult to take because this is a departure. In fact, these two performances are outliers compared to the rest of the season. That's why they attract so much attention, because you kind of go, well, where did this come from? Because it hasn't been there. Now, to the point of Joshua Kimmich, isn't it amazing how it works in our game that the most important goal of the season for Bayern Munich is scored by the player, Joshua Kimmich, who has been directly or indirectly mostly criticized by his manager. So Thomas Tuchel, greatest achievement with Bayern Munich potentially has depended upon the performance and the goal by Joshua Kimmich, the player that he doesn't want on the field. That in itself just tells you everything that there is to know about how to manage or how to handle a team and how things sometimes just happen to work out. Today, it just happened to work out for Bayern Munich and Thomas Tuchel. They go through, and deservedly so, because over the two legs, they were better than Arsenal.
If you don't watch the Bundesliga, or I mean, it's a bit like La Liga, the commentary on that La Liga game, it's crystal clear. They don't watch Real Madrid every week. And if you don't watch the Bundesliga and you just think Bayern Munich, maybe just have a little glance at the table, you think, yeah, it's Bayern Munich, isn't it? But if you watch them all year, but particularly the last two games going in, Dortmund at home and Heidenheim away, second half.
Yep.
First half, not too bad. Second half, a total collapse against the side. I think it's their first ever year in the Bundesliga, promoted last year, right? Who made 3 subs at half-time, little Heidenheim, and Bayern collapsed. And so you had to, and I know Jurgen picked Bayern, and that's fair enough, but you had to sit here rationally and go, right, and this was before the Arsenal defeat to Villa at the weekend. You have to sit and go, right, how do I find a way for Bayern Munich to win this game over 2 legs? And it was hard to find an argument. And I suppose one sense is, like Dortmund, there's a change of tune in this competition. There's a change of energy. And the other side of it is, and certainly we can talk about in this game, is that Arsenal's performances in this competition have been nowhere near the standard of their performances in the Premier League. And maybe it's just because they've met their match in this competition. I don't know. But it was hard to put an argument up as to how Bayern would knock Arsenal out over 180 minutes.
Jurgen, it's interesting from what Ali was saying about Thomas Tuchel's role in all of this, because surely as a coach, you should be getting your players to believe, to show heart, even though it's against Heidenheim, yet clearly he hasn't, and yet they step on the pitch today and put in these sort of performances. So has he got anything to do with it, or is it just the players wanting it?
No, he certainly has a lot to do with it. You know, he's still guiding the entire environment on the inside of the team, and he's a very experienced and a very, very good coach. And he proved that he won the Champions League as well already. But the phenomenon of Bayern Munich in the Bundesliga has also to do with the fact, first of all, Bayer Leverkusen played its season of all times, you know, which nobody expected. In the perfection, Bayer Leverkusen did it and deserved it. The other thing is, Bayern Munich won the German Bundesliga the last 11 seasons. In other words, 11 years in a row Bayern Munich won it. So the hunger in you as a player is not the same. And then you see a team coming up and not losing any game until today. Bayer Leverkusen hasn't lost any game in the Bundesliga season. So you give it to them and say, okay, you know what, it's maybe meant to be that way. But at the same time, the club still has this desire, this hunger, and also this expectation to do well in whatever is left over. So left over is the Champions League. And so they refocus, you know, they kind of get themselves together and say, again, what, you know, we'll show the world now who we are, you know, and we make it maybe not in the most fashionable way, maybe not in the most spectacular way with winning 3-4-0, but we're going to get through there, you know, and this was a tough fight with Arsenal in both legs, but they got the job done. And now anything is possible. Now you're in the semifinals, and now you go eye to eye, and you kind of play it out. But I think Thomas Tuchel, the experience that he's getting right now with that team, with the club, is priceless. You know, he will take that with him, even if he moves on and takes over another big club, maybe in Europe. But the experience that he made is fantastic.
Do you know when I'm wrong? I'm quite happy to admit it.
Oh, okay.
And I always find this interesting on these sort of nice Champions
Well, are Man City in? Man City in the semi-final, yes or no?
In Champions League games like this, like people
confused me.
I know.
Can we just have a conversation?
Robbo, what surprises me is that people talk about experience within this competition. And I think, come on, you know, you look at the players that Arsenal have within that squad, within that starting 11, they should have garnered enough experience just playing the game professionally to be able to step up to this level. Yet we saw against Porto, and goodness me, we've seen against Bayern, that once again that lack of experience seemed to show.
I always think about this Arsenal side. They're a very good team and they've got a bit of experience. They've got some younger players as well that are coming through and doing brilliantly. But I find they're too emotional at times. When things are going their way, they think they can beat anybody and they play at a high tempo and they do everything. They fight for each other. I would think, over-celebrate victories and over-celebrate when they get a draw against Man City away from home and Pep Guardiola has to tell them to keep quiet. You haven't won anything yet. And that's what happens when they start losing games or not playing well in games. They go the other way. And they did it before Christmas when they didn't win for 3 games. And they've done it in this little important period here. Losing to Aston Villa, not playing quite well enough in the first game to stop Bayern coming back into it, and not playing well enough tonight. And that's something that Arteta and Arsenal have got to look at and say, it can't all be based on emotion. You're a good team. You've got some good players. Make it more... Have a clearer head when things aren't quite going your way, rather than basing it all on emotion and whipping up the crowd and all that sort of stuff. That's where Arsenal, I think, are still lacking at the moment. And I still think that comes down to the manager a bit.
This is the starting 11 you'd have wanted, Craig. Kai Havertz back in that false 9. Jorginho coming in.
I wasn't desperate for Kai Havertz to be in the false 9. I was desperate for him not to be in the midfield.
Well, Jorginho then came into the midfield to see Rice go up. But it was nothing from Arsenal today. It was so flat.
Yeah. I think team selection, you couldn't really question too much. I mean, left back's been an area that has fluctuated between a couple of players. It was Tommy Asu tonight, but you know they had the extra midfielder in there, as you said. Havertz was back in a position where he feels more comfortable, and he's actually played pretty well recently. Some big players that are coming on are off form, like Gabriel Jesus. He's not doing anything.
But even those on the pitch, what's Saka done the last couple of games?
Look, Arsenal were poor. Arsenal can still win the Premier League. It might happen, it might not. If they win the Premier League, it'll be a great season. But this could also be another season where, like last year, certainly they didn't win the FA. No, they didn't. They could be empty-handed. Does that mean there's a lack of progression at a club? No, I don't think it does, because they've played some great stuff. But I think it's just proven, certainly at the moment, that getting over the line is difficult. Because there's some big skittles you have to skittle out of the way. City have found that out again tonight. It's not the first time City have found that out, but they've found it out again tonight. That skittling Real Madrid out of the equation was okay last year, but it was a tough nut to crack this year. And I think Arsenal at the moment are finding that now. Do they find their feet again and kick on for the remainder of the Premier League and hope City drop something? That could happen. But if we're isolating it to the Champions League, the 2 games against Porto and the 2 games against Bayern Munich, they've been found wanting at this level.
And what's disappointing is that following the Aston Villa result in the press conference, Mikel Arteta is sort of punching the table and putting his hand on the table, said, this is the moment, this is when it's all fine and well when we're winning, but now when things get tough, this is when we need to see who we really are. And this was the next game. This was the next performance. And this is what Arsenal produced. That is damning evidence. It's damning evidence for the manager, it's damning evidence for the players that they were very flat. And it's a team, alluding to what Robert was saying, it's a team that really depends on their emotion and their energy and the intensity and pressing higher up the field. When they take a step back, when they become passive, they become a lesser team because they don't quite have that intensity and energy and that sort of enthusiasm to play the game. If indeed it is because of structure, if indeed it is because the manager is telling you to take a step back, it's a mistake. But regardless, Arsenal, in taking a step back, they did the same thing in the second half against Aston Villa. They did it today from the very beginning of the game against Bayern Munich. It's not in their makeup as a group to be successful doing that. So if indeed you're best when you take a step forward, then do that. And whatever, you live with the results at that point. But don't take a step back and take a different personality in a game that truly matters, in the game that defines your season in Champions League. Don't be what you haven't been up until this point. Try to be a different team. You're best when you're taking the pressure higher of the field. They didn't do it. They took a step back. They got passive. They're out.
Normally, when you lose to Bayern Munich, if that's what happens, it's not too difficult to sell it. You know, well, look, as Jurgen said, this team has dominated for 11 years. All these world-class players. That's slightly easier to sell, although it's a difficult pill to swallow as a player. It's an easier sell as a manager. I mean, you say, right, okay, we're just not quite ready. We come up against a side that are flying. They're the best team in Germany. We're out. We need to learn from that. That's not the case at the moment. You know, yes, they upped their game, but they've got problems. They've had problems all over the field. They were missing some key players. They had suspensions, and they had two centre-halves in De Ligt and Eric Dyer. Yeah. Eric Dyer, who was, what, 5th choice, give or take, at Tottenham. Two centre-halves that the manager didn't fancy. And the only reason they're playing is because Upamecano and Kim, he just doesn't fancy them either. So he has, it's the lesser of two evils. And that's, I think, a bit of a difficult sell for Mikel Arteta when you see this sort of patched up Bayern Munich side that have been walloped in the Bundesliga, giving you, I wouldn't quite say a lesson, but being the better side over 2 games comfortably. And it's by far the strongest Bayern Munich side. That, I think, for Mikel Arteta is going to be a hard one to get to sleep with tonight.
Jurgen, were you surprised how flat Arsenal were in this second leg?
Well, you also are only as good as your opponent is, and Bayern Munich definitely stepped it up compared to their performances, obviously, in the Bundesliga. And it shows now, Arteta, it shows now where his team is at, you know, in its development overall. You know, it's a talented team, and obviously they're still fighting for the title in the Premier League. But those are the moments where this real face is coming out. You know,